Why would you choose to ruin Thanksgiving by bringing a mediocre, flavorless store-bought pie when you could put just a little bit more effort and make one that tastes 10 times better and has everybody asking you for your recipe? Whether you're hosting Thanksgiving this year and just looking for something a little bit different, or you're going to somebody else's Thanksgiving dinner and you were just told to bring pie, this is your sign to make it yourself this year instead of buying it from a store or restaurant. I'm going to show you two traditional Thanksgiving pies that I make every single year, a pumpkin pie and a pecan pie. The pumpkin pie recipe that I'm going to show you is a little bit more elevated than the one that is on the pumpkin pie can. And the pecan pie is the one that's truly special to me because it's my grandma's recipe. I have no idea where she got it from. All I know is that I have never ever tasted another pecan pie quite like this one. I still have the original recipe that she wrote on a letter to me, and I use it every single year. So I'm going to show you how easy it is to pull both of these recipes together. First, I'm going to show you all the ingredients so that you can just add everything to your shopping list, but I will have the full ingredients and recipe in the caption down below. We're going to need 4 pie shells in total. These come in sets of 2. We're going to be making 2 pumpkin and 2 pecan. I use the frozen pie crust because that's what my grandma did, and that's just how I've learned. But if you want to be extra and make your pie crust from scratch, that's totally okay too. So for the pumpkin pie, we're going to use 2 cans of pumpkin puree. Make sure to get the 100% pure pumpkin. We are not looking for pumpkin pie filling. We're also going to use 2 cans of evaporated milk, heavy cream, and 6 large eggs, light brown sugar and granulated sugar, vanilla extract, and of course the traditional pumpkin pie seasoning, cinnamon, nutmeg, ginger, and cloves. Or you can use pumpkin pie spice if you already have the seasoning that's pre-mixed. For the pecan pie, you need pecans, obviously. My grandma's recipe calls for 1.5 cups, but I usually put 2. You need a whole bottle of the dark Karo syrup, 6 large eggs. I already have mine cracked in here because I try to do some steps ahead of time to prep. 6 tablespoons of melted butter. I pre-melted mine. And the last things we need for the pecan pie are granulated sugar and vanilla extract. So let's get started. I always start with the pecan pies first just because they're a little more complicated, so I like to get it out of the way. Now in my pot, I'm gonna add 3/4 of a cup of sugar, 2 and 3. And now we're gonna dump the whole bottle of this dark Karo syrup inside of the sugar. No matter how many years I've made this pecan pie, the seal for the Karo syrup always is a problem. Okay, now it's open. We're gonna just dump the whole bottle in here. Now you're never gonna get every last drop, but I do try to make sure to get as much as possible out of this bottle. Now I'm gonna put this on the stove. We're gonna caramelize the syrup and the sugar. We're gonna let the sugar get nice and dissolved into the syrup mixture. I'm not gonna leave that unattended for long, but while it is starting to heat up, I'm gonna go ahead and beat my eggs. I just like to have everything ready. That way when the syrup is hot and I start mixing everything together, I don't have to stop and prep anything else. Now let's get our pecans ready. I have pecan pieces, but I want them to be a little bit smaller. So I'm gonna just lightly chop them. So this is gonna be totally your preference. I use about 2 cups worth of pecans. If that's a little bit too much for you, then you can use 1.5 cups. And I like to just chop them up lightly just so they can be a little bit more broken, about like that. I will just pour them into a bowl. Now this is what my syrup looks like, nice and bubbly and foamy. It's gotten thicker, all the sugar is dissolved, so we are ready to mix everything together. So I'm gonna put my eggs into this bigger bowl. Give them one last little beating just to make sure they're all mixed up. Now we're gonna add in the syrup, and this is a big tip that you'll want to remember. You want to add the syrup in very slowly because it is very hot, and if you add it too much at a time, you're gonna get like a scrambled eggs result, and scrambled eggs and syrup, it's just not a great combination. So we're gonna continue to slowly pour in the syrup so that it doesn't scramble our eggs. And I didn't mention this in the beginning, but we do have our oven preheating to 450. And just gonna scrape out some of the last of the thicker syrup. Now we're gonna add our 6 tablespoons of butter, 1.5 teaspoons of vanilla extract, another little mix, and now we're gonna add in our pecans. And I just have to know, how do y'all say the word pecan? Do you say it pecan like me? Or do you say it pecan? That's how my husband says it. Or maybe you have another variation. I've heard some people say it pecan. I don't know. Let me know in the comments because I'm super curious. And also let me know where you're from because I've heard that the pronunciation of the word depends on what region of the country you're in. So I'm super curious to know where you're from and how you pronounce it. Now, the next thing I always do before I get these in the oven is I get a huge cookie sheet and I line it with parchment paper. The reason for this is that if any part of the pie filling overflows, you don't want it to overflow down in your oven because that's basically like burnt syrup. And it smells really bad and it's really hard to get out of the bottom of your oven. So we have our 2 pie crusts. These come frozen, but while I'm getting my pies ready, I always leave them out so that they can soften a little bit. And now we're gonna just pour the filling into each one of the pie crusts. It's gonna look a little uneven in the beginning, but that's okay. We will adjust the amount of pecans as we go, just to make sure that they both get the right amount of filling and pecan. Now the pies are ready to go in the oven. We're gonna cook them at 450 degrees for 10 minutes. And then we're gonna change the temperature to 300 degrees and let them bake for about another 25 minutes. Okay, so I just set a timer for 10 minutes on my phone so that the pecan pies can get their first 10 minutes. And now we're gonna start on the filling for our pumpkin pie. We're gonna do 2 cans of pumpkin puree. And I think I mentioned this before, but make sure it's pure pumpkin and not pumpkin pie filling. The smell reminds me of baby food. Now we're going to add 1.5 cups of brown sugar. This is a 1/2 cup, so we'll need 3 of these. 3. And then 1/2 cup of granulated sugar, and we're gonna add our 6 eggs. Does anybody else get the ick from raw eggs? Now we're gonna add 2 teaspoons of vanilla, 3 teaspoons of cinnamon, 1 teaspoon of salt, didn't mean for that to happen, 1/2 teaspoon of nutmeg, 1/2 teaspoon of cloves, and 1 teaspoon of ginger. Now we're gonna give this a mix before we add in our milk. And I actually switched to my whisk just to make sure everything is blended very well. Now we can add in our milk. We're gonna start with the evaporated milk. So we have 2 cans of evaporated milk. And now we're gonna add our 1 cup of heavy cream and mix it. Now for the pumpkin pies, you'll wanna preheat your oven for 425 degrees. I have a double oven situation, so that makes it very convenient to bake 2 sets of pies at one time. But if you only have a single oven, then you just wouldn't start this process until the pecan pies are a little further along. And now our timer is going off for the pecan pie, so I'm gonna lower the temperature down to 300 degrees, and we're gonna bake those for another 25 minutes. Now let's get the crust ready for our pumpkin pies. I've never had these spill over, so I don't usually line with parchment, but you certainly could if you wanted to, just to be safe and avoid a little bit of mess. Now let's pour our pumpkin filling in. And just like the pecan pies, we just want to pour it as evenly as possible. Now I'm actually making 4 pumpkin pies, so those measurements are for 4. So if you only need 2 pies, make sure to check out the recipe down in the description. Now the pumpkin pies are ready to go in the oven. We're gonna bake these at 425 for 15 minutes, and then we're gonna lower the temperature to 350 and bake for another, it's usually like 35 to 45 minutes. Now our pecan pies are ready, just out of the oven, and they are looking absolutely perfect. The edges do get a little brown faster than the rest of the pie is done. So if you don't like them this well done or this crispy, then you can just take some foil and wrap it just around the edges of the crust, just so those cook a little bit slower, a little bit less than the rest of the pie. Let me show you up close. Here they are, absolutely delicious. Now we just have to wait for the pumpkin to be done. Now the timer is going off for our pumpkin pie, so we're gonna lower the temperature down to 350 and bake for an extra, usually it's around 45 minutes. Okay, our pumpkin pies are finally done. So sorry for the bad lighting, but I had to take down my setup. I was doing mom duties, bath time, all the things while these pies were finishing, but let's take a look. Now, do you remember when I told you that I never put parchment underneath my pumpkin pies because they never overflow? Well, of course, that was the one time that I spilled them while I was taking them to the oven. So I had to do a little switch up during the baking process and switch pans so that I could scrape off all the burnt pumpkin from the other pan. I added parchment paper, but that's why you see the darkness around the crust rings on this one. It's not actually burnt. It's just that my pumpkin filling spilled over. Other than that, the filling part looks absolutely perfect. And now you've seen my whole process from start to finish on my pumpkin and my pecan pies. These are absolutely a hit at every single Thanksgiving, especially the pecan pies. I would absolutely love to know if you try making these and how they turn out. So let me know in the comments. I'll see y'all next time.